Welcome to the King's Crown podcast, the forward-thinking podcast for the Faculty of Dentistry and Craniofacial Sciences in King's College London. Join us in our first interview of the year with your hosts, Jaewon, Sana, and Nicole. We have Dr. Jazz here with us. He organized a 2-day talk in King's College London, our campus, with Dr. Lincoln Harris, and one of them was on From Graduation to a Great Career, and then another brilliant clinical cases full-day lecture. By the way, it was very successful. I'm pretty sure many of us have benefited from it and got inspired from it.
It's great to be on, ladies. Thanks so much for hosting me on the Dental Crowns, the King's Crown podcast, which is so relevant in terms of the what's happening in the world right now. So it's a good name.
I don't know if you noticed, but my introduction just there was an homage to yours. The introduction you have with the male American accent speaking. You said from Fiverr, I think in one of the podcasts. You've mentioned it's from Fiverr. Right. I tried my best to mimic it. I hope it worked. And it was guessing, really good. Thank you. I'm guessing that all of our listeners who are subscribed to you will notice it too, hopefully. So, moving on. For this issue, our topic is change, the changing world to be exact. But as students, we see the change within dentistry. From our lectures, from our tutorials, from the textbooks even, we just see how it has changed over time. I think this field is quite obvious when we see the change. For example, when we see new technology coming up, we see Invisalign that was only made like 10 years ago, I think. Now everybody's using Invisalign. New materials are being discovered, like injectable composites. New methods are being found and implemented. So for endodontics, we tend to stick with lateral condensation, but we also did kind of get to talk about vertical condensation. Don't think it's being used as much nowadays. So those are what fascinates me, really. And in King's College London, I think it's quite prevalently known, but MI dentistry, so minimally invasive dentistry, is heavily covered. And professors are always stressing about how it was different back in their times. Before, they did not have to be caring about minimally invasive. It was maximum invasion, cutting away all of that enamel for that better bond.
Extension for prevention.
Exactly. But now it's totally different. So my question is, what are the stories from back in your days and back in your times? So do you see some major changes in the field of dentistry as a dentist and as a public figure, because you're also hosting a podcast of your own?
So much has changed. I mean, that's inevitable, but I don't mean to scare you or anyone listening or anyone reading what's being transcribed, but anything that I learned, every single technique that I learned at dent school, I'm not using a single thing in the real world. Not even, and I'm so sorry, not even how I etch, right? Not even how I apply bond, not even which bond I use, not even the way I isolate, not even how I take a tooth out. I don't do a single thing that was taught to me at dent school. I haven't placed an amalgam. You were talking, Nicole, a moment ago, amalgam refurbishment. I haven't placed an amalgam in 6 years. Okay? So just learn what you have to learn. Do it well. Do it right. Yes. But be open to the fact that you're going to do it completely different, but we have to. We all have to learn we all have to go through a phase of wearing nappies before we wear big boy pants, and that's how it is, right? You just have to go through that sequence. So don't be afraid of it. Don't cry about it. Just do the best you can, but be open to the fact that there are completely different ways to do it in the real world.
Speaking of that, in one of your podcasts, I think it was the How Dental School Let You Down. It's basically what you were saying about how everything now is like kind of watered down, and then when we actually start practicing it, it all changes and there's so much more. One of the things you were saying was to act now. Or the dentist you had was saying to act now.
Look, it's different, and like you guys, the numbers of crowns and restorations and root canals and everything, your numbers will be ridiculously low compared to me, and mine was still low compared to my predecessors. And the guys who qualified in the 60s and 70s who did like 1 million of everything, they had it the best, right? And that's the way it goes, right? So you're gonna qualify, we're gonna qualify, we have qualified as a generation, having done least amount of dentistry. And now that MI, which is a great concept and whatnot, but you qualify not having done the hand skills. So when I speak to our foundation trainers, right, you know what I mean, right? The DF1, the guys who train us to bridge that gap between qualifying and the real world, they are having to pick up all the slack. They're the ones who are having to teach their trainees how to do an extraction, how to do an onlay, how to do a crown because they've only done one crown, and it was like halfway through fourth year, and then in fifth year the patient cancelled and they only did one crown, right? So that's a lot of work for the foundation trainer to do. So what advice I would give is that, look, it's not your fault you're in the situation. It's not your fault that you have to qualify with low numbers. Can you ethically somehow magic some numbers, magic some crown preps tomorrow? You can't. It's just, it's not going to happen. So don't feel down about it. What you need to do is, which is the beauty now, I guess, is there's so much exposure that you can on YouTube, on Dental Tubules, on my podcast, anywhere, right? You go to the free BACD events, anywhere you go, there is so much in the way of education. So although that you may not get the hand skills, you can get the mind, the decision-making skills. You can visualize a crown prep. You can see a crown prep being done 55 different ways from one YouTuber nowadays, right? And then you can actually apply some of that and actually lubricate your learning process so that you don't have to suffer as much as perhaps when I did. There was hardly any resources to learn. It was hands-on courses only. And that can be very expensive early on. So use what's out there in terms of in the online world. There's so much, and all these cheap and free courses you get to go on. Absorb.
Yeah, it's actually amazing that you just mentioned that, because I think that's also another form of change that we're experiencing. Before, most of the knowledge in dentistry was learned through lectures and textbooks, but through COVID, I think universities have realized online lectures does the same work done. And as you just said, YouTube is also another great source of education. So that's a bunch of change happening, not only in dentistry, but like in the whole world. And that's again applying into dentistry. Yeah,
and social media. Like I know,
and social media.
we should be really careful with Instagram and the University of Facebook, because that's that. You know how they say the hierarchy of evidence. Have you covered that? So you got your systematic reviews and stuff, randomized controlled trials, expert opinion at the bottom, and then even below expert opinion is what Dave the dentist said on Facebook at 11:25 p.m. On some group. Okay, so you have to take everything with a pinch of salt, but there is some good stuff on there, some fantastically executed cases. But the problem you have as a newly qualified dentist is that you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you're looking at is amazing or just pure rubbish, and you shouldn't be following that. So what you need is some mentors to rely on to help you point out okay, that's actually really bad, that's negligent, and that's actually really good, that's really clever. So you need to listen to other voices and listen to everyone.
Also, another question I had is something I've been thinking about a lot, and it's something that you actually touched on. So you were talking about how when you studied, it was mainly like hands-on, practice-based, and now with us, there's a lot of theory. I feel like that's dominated more than the actual practical side of it. And then you in your podcast and loads of dentists always talk about the postgraduate courses that graduates usually do to improve. Do you think we're going to have to compensate for the lack of clinical practice due to this change, if that makes sense?
Yeah, a great question. So the first part of the question, you suggested that when I was training in Sheffield from 2008 to 2013, that I had lots of clinical. I wouldn't say so. I think Sheffield was good. We had an really successful outreach program. We'd see a lot of patients. I did a load of endo, and I won the Tompit Ford Prize in endo at the time. But I did only 8 crowns, 9 crowns, something. But even then, nowadays, I speak to young people, and they're only doing 2 or 3 crowns. So yes, we did a fair bit of practice, but compared to what we should be doing, what we really, really should be doing, right? Like if you had to go have a heart surgery, and the guy who went to the heart surgeon school came out and he did just the one heart surgery, before, you'd be pretty gutted, right? Now, thankfully, it's not heart surgery, it's just teeth. Right, that's a really good piece of advice. It's just teeth. Calm down, everyone. It's okay. You'll be fine. But we need to still do the best job we can. And so I don't think we had a super practical course. It was still extremely heavy in theory, which leads nicely to the next part of the question you asked, which is essentially what you're asking is, when you qualify, do you have to pull out your wallet and get on the phone to Bank of Mum and Dad and say, you know what, you paid my fees or whatever, or we did what we did, but now the real spending begins now, because I need to now learn how to do a crown and learn how to go complete dentures. Unfortunately, you may want to shut your ears for this, but yes. And so when I was speaking to one of my mentors, I was a dental student. I used to be on Twitter. I don't have time to be on Twitter anymore, but I used to be on Twitter, and I used to to tweet with dentists and stuff. And one dentist just started to be very friendly with me. He's like, it's a super successful cosmetic dentist. I was like, wow, why is he being so nice to me? Found out we're both from West London and Hounslow, and he kind of was mentoring me and stuff. I was like, what a cool guy. And so I went to his practice in West London, and I fast forward, 6-7 years later, I was working for him basically in his beautiful part in Richmond. His name is Hap Gill, a legend, a real inspiration to me. And I asked him, what do I need to do to kind of like we say, what do we need to do now? And he said something that really at the time blew my mind, and I'm going to pass that on to you, which is forget everything they taught you at dental school. Firstly, is the first thing he said to me, and like in your position, you're smiling like nervously. I was the same, right, Nicole? I was the same guy. Jay, when I was the same, because I was like, what the hell did he just say? Like I'm working my ass off here, and he's told me to forget everything. I kind of know what he means now, okay? And the other thing was be prepared to spend a lot of money, okay? And at the time, he told me 50K plus. He said, be prepared to spend 50K plus on extra courses so that you can be at a level that you can do the kind of work that I'm doing. I think that 50K figure was wrong, because I've spent probably twice that in the last 9 years, basically. So, and I come from a council estate family, and my bank of my dad never helped me and stuff. As I was earning more, I just reinvested it back to education. So in some of my tax years, yes, I earned well, but then my tax bill was lower because a lot of it I was putting back into diplomas and courses and the flights to courses in nice places, because let's be honest, life is more than just going to course. You want to go to a course in a nice place now and again to experience the wider cultures and whatnot. So be prepared to some way, somehow, spend a lot of money to fill the gaps in your knowledge so that you can practice to the level that you want to practice.
And also, you said you were on Twitter tweeting an actual dentist, and that's how you made connections at the time.
But the thing is, I was just tweeting things a dental student would tweet, right? And then it's just, how they say Twitter is just a conversation with yourself until someone joins in, and it just so happened that he joined in, right? And so that was strange. Like, I guess you guys are now more on Instagram and, I don't know, Twitch. I don't know, what do you young people do nowadays?
Yeah, Instagram, you got it correct.
And TikTok.
TikTok as well.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
love TikTok.
So I can see that you were really proactive at the time, and we as dental students would like to get a head start, also be proactive. So it's kind of similar to the questions that you asked the mentor that you had. But what do you think we could do to get a head start and to be ahead of this change that we're facing?
Identify people who to you are role models, and listen, sometimes you get it wrong. Sometimes you think someone's a role model, and then you meet them in real life and you think, what the hell was I thinking? But you just didn't know at the time, and it's okay. But what you need to do is find these role models and find them in real life. And then maybe, Jay, where do you live? You have this lovely American Canadian accent. What are you?
Oh, what am I? I am a Korean that was brought up in Korea, Japan, and Singapore. Went to an international school, which is why my accent is a mix of everything. Yeah, and then I moved here for King's College London, my dream school.
But where are your parents?
Oh, my parents are based in Singapore at the moment.
Singapore, lovely place. I know some great dentists in Singapore, so if you need any connections, let me know. So I would get in touch with these great connections, go and shadow those dentists. When you go to visit your family, I would spend a few days to go through these clinics and shadow and get some guidance. And it's nice to actually see dentistry in the real world. And then you make, someone takes you under their wing and they help you out. And it's great to have that connection. And that's the guy who's going to tell you, this is filth, this is rubbish, don't listen to that, and listen to this. And so that can be that person. So my advice is, Nicole, where's home for you?
Do you know Mitcham Tooting?
Yes, so plenty of dentists in Tooting. So you find someone near you within maybe not in Tooting, maybe a little bit further out, and I'm joking. Tooting is fine. So find someone. Isn't St. George's there?
Yeah, my mum swear that I was born there. Not that you are.
There we are, St. George's. Richard Porter's there, a great restorative department. Maybe just go and shadow them.
I actually did sit in a graduate program when I was doing work experience, and at that time I thought root canal treatment was this amazing thing, but now it's a bit more scary. But yeah.
Now you see the other side of it.
Yeah.
But you should totally, reach out these connections during your summer holidays, however sad it sounds. Take a break, but just 1 or 2 days, go and shadow, and take an interest. And you'd be amazed how people are warming and welcoming. And then 1 out of every 10 will be like, what the hell did I just see? And this guy's a lunatic. And that's fine. It's okay.
Absolutely.
That's
I think those are also learning opportunities, learning from the people that you don't want to become. Actually, because you
awesome.
just mentioned work shadowing, that's actually what I did over the summer. I went back home to Singapore, and instead of shadowing,
Whereabouts in
actually,
Singapore? Where on the island do you live?
island is a very small island. So even if it's on the other end, it would just take me like an hour drive maximum to get there.
Okay, I used to live in Bukit Timah, so I have
Bukit
fond memories of
Timah!
living.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes, of
yeah.
course, you worked in Singapore, didn't you? How long was that for?
18 months, but I miss it dearly. I used to also work in Somerset, near Kilney
That
area.
is
So I used to.
that is the Chelsea of Singapore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I worked there, but it was crazy. Like I'd see some fancy people, but then it was like seeing fancy people, and then half my list, and then half my list was seeing their domestic helpers. So it was seeing those kind of population. It was interesting,
The
actually.
two contrasting populations in Singapore.
Yes.
That must have been an interesting experience.
It was very
Um,
interesting. It was very interesting because the helper would come, and it got very awkward because who was funding the treatment, and therefore who was really consenting. The consent should come from the patient, but in the patient's case, she's like a 35-year-old woman, and this 55-year-old guy is the guy who's paying the cash, and then he's kind of saying, well, maybe she should just have the tooth out because this is how much money you want to spend. It was really awkward.
so how did you handle those situations? Did you, like, as a dentist, from what you've learned, you know that you have to get consent from the patient, but also you can't really ignore the financial aspect of it.
You just have to ignore everything and look at the patient and make sure they understood everything. And ultimately, they need to come up with a decision, knowing all the risks and benefits. And yes, in the real world, cost is a factor. So although we'd like to save teeth and do a root canal and do a crown on top, but what if that's not affordable? Then we need to have that discussion and whatever works best for that patient at that circumstance. And sometimes just let me get you out of pain and let's see how we can salvage this situation in the future when you're out of pain. So you got to think on your feet a lot, be a detective, and come up with the best strategy at that time.
Yeah.
Right.
We've just started. Well, in second year we did have patients, maybe like one or two, some of us none, but we've just started properly seeing patients, and nothing has prepared me for the amount of adapting we have to do. It's good you say, it's a good point. Nothing has prepared me.
To really level yourself up as a dentist, right? As a dentist who wants to learn, and as a dental student. Okay, I was part of this group called Toastmasters. Have you heard of Toastmasters?
Not yet,
So
no.
Toastmasters are these guys who they essentially are like practicers of public speaking. And you go there, and then one day you have to give a speech for 5 minutes. You have a challenge, and the next thing you have to pick a name out of a hat, and it's a random topic, and you have to speak about this random topic for 60 seconds or whatever. So it's essentially training your mind for improv, because what you learn is that when you go into the surgery and you see a patient, it is a performance, it is theatre.
I agree.
It is. It is theatre.
The
It's
moment
performance.
patient
Okay.
leaves, I'm a different person.
Exactly. No matter what happened to the patient before, no matter what's happened in your family life, home life, when the patient's there, you have to give them your all. But essentially, it is a performance, it is a theatre, it is choreographed, it is psychology with your patient, and therefore, but if you exercise those mind skills to actually become a better performer, it will help you be a better dentist. I think because it's all about communication.
So
Absolutely, it
helpful.
is all about
Thank you.
communication. I really felt that in person when I was seeing my patients recently. I agree with Nicole. I was not prepared for any of that.
God.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for all of my clinical tutors. They're helping me out every single
Hmm.
time.
Another thing that I was very unprepared for is how fast you have to develop thick skin in dental school. Um, I feel like a lot of people listening might agree with me. I'm not sure how much I should actually say, but you get a lot of tutors who kind of forget that you are just starting out and you don't have decades worth of experience under your belt and you are still learning. You're basically like a baby learning to walk. And there are a lot of tutors that don't really understand that, and it does make you it contributes to the imposter syndrome and the feeling like you're not good enough. So, in terms of developing thicker skin and believing in yourself and like having that good developmental change as you go from first to fifth year, what advice would you give to us?
That's a real tough one because every bone in my body right now it just detests tutors who are just not nice. As a primary thing, my human instinct is just be nice. And so when I had really lovely, nice tutors, but I also had tutors that were assholes. And I think why would you make a student feel like yes they made a mistake, but if I made that same mistake with a different tutor, they'd handle it completely differently.
Yeah.
You go away with one tutor and you feel like you know what, you can do this. You have a great career ahead of you. You're going to be just fine. And you spend some time with the other tutor, and the entire energy and your enthusiasm gets drained.
Yeah. Makes
And
all
so
the difference.
what it makes a huge difference. And so I would say is in one ear, out the other ear. If you're experiencing negativity, if you're experiencing bad vibes, then just know that you've only got to spend one term, one semester, 1 year. Be very unlucky if you have to spend 2 years in a row with the same tutor. Just say yes, doctor, whoever, and just do what they have to do, and try and identify the people who are there to cheer you, to support you on, right? And those are people that you should follow. Now, some people do just fine with those people who criticize them and they seem to like him and whatever, but it just wasn't me. In fact, one of the reasons I didn't go further into the restorative pathway was I just found that the people who were teaching me at the time just really were not nice, actually. And I thought, you know what, I don't want to be in this sort of scenario. Let me go down into private practice where I found my peers, my colleagues were much nicer. And that actually was an important thing for me. The reason why I liked endo so much initially, I don't do much anymore, but is I had Stephen Godfrey as a mentor. He was a tutor at dent school who taught us endo. And he was just this lovely man who would just make me feel like I can do root canal. And I did so many. And he just made me feel like I could. So try and identify those people who are building you up and try and recognize those people who are destroying you. But don't take it too personally, right? It's a short time. You will get through it.
This links really nicely into the mentor, that you have to choose the right mentors thing that you mentioned earlier. Actually, the reason why I got into dentistry in the first place is through work experience. I wasn't really sure if I should get into dentistry, but as I was shadowing different dentists back in Singapore in high school, I just met lovely people and they were so welcoming, so nice, made me feel like a part of the community, although I wasn't even studying dentistry at the time. So yes, I agree. It really is the environment that you're in, the people that you're surrounded by that affects you so much and the path that you take from there.
Absolutely.
Was there ever a change in your personal life that you regret and why?
A change in my personal life that I regret? Yes. I really regret that in my life right now, as it is right now, so busy being a dad, being a dentist, being a podcaster, being all the things, that the thing I'm neglecting is my health. And so I would love to go back into the gym and stuff. So I've taken massive action. I'm reducing my Wednesdays clinically from next month so that I can focus more on me and my health. So I guess the personal choice I had to make to keep afloat as a father, as a husband, as a dentist, making treatment plans for my patients, making sure I'm fresh every day and there to do the kind of dentistry that I do, is I had to let my health go a bit. And I'm not saying, I'm like 500 pounds now, I'm really obese or anything like that. I'm just saying I don't feel my best. I don't feel my healthiest. But I've recognized it. I'm going to make a change for it. So that is my big regret, is that in life, we have a finite amount of time. We all have a very limited amount of time. And so we have to choose our priorities. And unfortunately, health has not been a priority for me at this moment, but not for long.
You do hear a lot about how dentistry is
You do.
very stressful and it's really hard to juggle things. But I'm surprised you didn't mention back pain actually.
Me too. Like the disc, is it all good? I mean, you're quite young, I guess. But when I was shadowing some dentists, they were all talking about different physiotherapies that they're getting. And that was like the main topic that they would discuss, which kind of scared me at first.
Well, I've actually, funny enough, had neck pain this month, which I don't usually get. So yes, that is true. So the old sternocleidomastoids and whatnot need a bit of stretching and whatnot. So things like Pilates, yoga, so good for us. So I just think that if motion is lotion. Right, you get more movement, you get more physical instead of being like this, curled up in a dental chair. And I think the antidote to that is just keeping very active and fit lifestyle. Will protect you against all the posture things that we do. Interestingly, I had a podcast episode, I think it was episode 25 or 28, where I had these two physios on. One of them is a physio turned dentist, and they said that actually the posture thing leading to a bad back is kind of not true at all. It's a bit like a bad occlusion. Does orthodontics cause TMD? Probably not. There's other things that cause TMD, basically. So do listen to that episode. It's very fascinating. And what they thought was actually it's living a poor lifestyle, bad nutrition, not very active, a lot of stress. Those are the main factors that will lead to chronic pain like back pain, which interestingly is also linked to TMD and stuff.
Speaking of stress, this just reminds me of one of your episodes where you were talking about being sued. I think there was a dentist who got sued, and he luckily won the case. But you were talking about how you have friends who are unfortunately suicidal over the fear of being sued. And then we were talking, me and some other students were talking to a dentist at uni, and he was saying how not only is suing a huge problem, but the GDC is becoming increasingly more and more, I don't know how to put it, well, difficult, can I say? Maybe
Careful,
he said...
they're listening.
Well, we would say what
They have a profile on every one of us, so now we just made it to the profile. We're now linked in the profile together.
He was saying how before you would get in trouble for like serious things like fraud, but now it's if one tiny thing is wrong, it's like a huge issue. How would you, so in terms of that kind of change through time, what are your thoughts or advice for us? Because a lot of us are stressing about that. It's in the back of our minds.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely stressful. And, like I said in that episode, I don't know if I'm enthusiastic, I'm bubbly, I'm, robust enough, but I don't think that when push comes to shove, if I have a patient complaint, because I'm so incredibly enthusiastic about dentistry, I love seeing my patients, I love doing dentistry, I do, but if that was at threat of being taken away from me, I don't know if I'd be, would I be suicidal? I don't know. I maybe. It's a very stressful thought, and I've seen how it's affected my dear friends, and it literally can change you as a person. And it leaves a scar. That is really sad, because what you do, you start doubting yourself, you start seeing yourself as inferior to your colleagues, and these are the first accounts of what people tell me. It hasn't happened to me yet, but I will. It's going to happen. A complaint is inevitable. I don't know how many times in the first 5 years it is said that we're going to get a complaint, which is just spine tingling. But the best piece of advice that I've come across, and it's not my advice, I think it's from a chap called Amin Armenian, based in the north, fantastic dentist, and he came up with the following: that there's 3 things. If you can do 2 of these well, you should be fine. Okay, so here are the 3 things. Okay, be nice to your patient. Okay, be nice to your patient. Okay, so that whole thing again, be nice to your patient. Okay, maybe those, you can bleep this out, maybe those arsehole tutors, maybe they're at dental school teaching you because the patients don't like them. I don't know.
But you said in that episode that being nice doesn't guarantee.
It doesn't guarantee it. It doesn't guarantee it. But this is Armenian's advice, and I like it, so I'm going to go with it. Okay, because it fits well with my philosophy, right? And my philosophy is just be nice to everyone. So I like that he said it. So be nice to your patient. Doesn't guarantee it, but I think it helps. And interesting, in that book Outliers, they had this experiment where they listened to, I don't know if you guys read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
You did mention it in a few of your episodes, I think. I didn't.
My favorite books, and then basically by the tone. So you imagine I give you some recordings of dentists at their consultations in their practices. Okay, if I gave you all recordings of 5 different dentists, and I asked you which is the one that got sued, just from listening to their consultations, you're probably going to get right. Okay, I think it was that one. Now that says something, that the tone of your voice and how you project yourself to the patient may have something to do with it. It doesn't guarantee it, but it may have something to do with it, right? That's what we know from medical negligence, right? So let's take that on board. So I think everyone just be nice. Yeah, we can all do this, okay? So let's do that one, okay? Choosing the appropriate treatment plan, choosing an appropriate. Sometimes there's no one appropriate treatment plan. There's 2 or 3 treatment plans that are appropriate, but there's about 70 others which probably weren't appropriate, okay? But choosing an appropriate treatment plan, okay? And then 3, executing that treatment plan to a high standard. So let's say you're nice to your patient, you shouldn't have done the veneers, but you did, but they're bloody good veneers, right? You're probably going to be okay. Versus you were rude to your patient, you shouldn't have done the veneers, it's done really well, but it leaves you a little bit of a dodgy ground. So it just gives you an example. So out of those 3 things, ideally do them all 3 fantastically, but we're only human, so at least do 2 really well.
Amazing.
Well, I did have a tutor who said if you treat patients like your grandma, they won't see you. So okay, maybe he wasn't completely lying.
I think it also comes down to the major phrase that's talked a lot in communication. They say it's not about what you say, it's about what they hear. So even though we think we're being super kind to our patients, we treat them like our own grandmas. Maybe the patient didn't feel like they were treated like grandmas. So it also comes down to how they receive that communication, our kindness, our attitude.
But then also there's the problem with in that specific episode, the dentist you were speaking to, I'm so sorry, I can't remember his name, but he was
Gulshan
saying
Murgai.
how yes, like I feel so sorry for him, but props to him for passing, sorry, winning. But he was saying how most of the people that sue him or complain are the people that he did the most for. He was saying that this woman in this episode, he did things for free because he could afford it, and so which completely like
You hear this all the time, Nicole. I've heard it all the time.
so
It's
scary.
always, but here's the thing: it's always going to be, and I don't know why or how. This is the way the universe works. It's going to be that patient who you stayed behind at lunch because they're in pain and you felt bad for them, and you're going to stay behind and help them. That's the one that's going to bite you in the ass. We don't know how. This is just the way the universe works, right? And I've heard this from various dentists that you were doing a favor or you're doing this, and that's the one that bit you. So, yeah, I don't know. I can't explain it, okay, but I hear it all the time.
That makes no sense to me. Okay, wow. But then you get, see, it's quite funny because a lot of people always complain about how much they hate dentists and how much dentists terrify them. And then when you get the good ones, they're the ones that get bitten. It's interesting. Food for thought. But speaking of treating your patients really well, what is something that you think people should do more of to better themselves?
Okay, I'll pick a basic one because I think it's so basic and so rudimentary. But even at dental school, I wasn't taught it. And in fact, when I once tried to walk from my unit to where all the dispensary stuff is kept, and I opened the drawer and I found some topical numbing gel, and my tutor was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going to use some topical gel." I was like, "Why?" And I didn't know what to say. I was like, "Oh, okay, I won't." And I walked back empty-handed, and I just gave the infiltration. And no one used it. They didn't tell us to use it. We just didn't, as a culture at the time in 2010, 2011, in that year, third year, fourth year. But why didn't we use topical? Everything was so slow at dental school anyway. Extra 5 minutes of topical is not going to ruin or to change anything. You're probably waiting for your tutor to come over and check something anyway. So do you ladies use topical anesthetic? Have you given enough infiltrations yet?
I haven't given infiltration yet, but I was allowed to use topical just for scaling because my patient was sensitive.
Yeah, and also for complex cases where the patients they're extra anxious about needles or any treatment, then we would be allowed to use topical.
See what I mean, J1? Like, why not use it on everyone routinely? It's a nice thing. Even if it's like the patient's like, wow, this dentist's taking care, and the way you pitch it to the patient is so important. Like, I don't want you to feel anything. I'm going to make sure it's really comfortable. I'm going to put this numbing gel. We're going to look after you. It's so critical. It's the number one basic thing. Now, yes, I know dentists say that unless you're waiting for 5 minutes, it's not going to work, and I agree with that. The tissue needs to be dry. You need to give it the time to work. And the other secret to getting a painless injection is that you use warm anesthetic at body temperature, and you go very slowly. Very slowly. If you do that, you'll give a painless anesthetic experience. So why aren't we doing this to our patients and then making a big deal of it? Because it's a real skill to do that. And so I think a basic thing you could do to treat your patients well is try to be that dentist who wants to really champion a painless experience.
That is a very small change, yet it could bring so much effect to the patient's experience. So I think as dental students ourselves, these are some little things that we could find in clinics, in our campuses, and bring about that change into our student lives.
I feel like that would improve public perception of dentists on a whole as well, because I get so many friends talking about, oh, I heard about this dentist who like purposefully inflicted pain on his patient and stuff like that. So it's a common misconception. So I feel like if we were, like Dr. Jazz was saying, if it was just normal to use topical anesthetic, then maybe that would help on a wider scale. I don't know, maybe.
And it comes to communication again, like we talked about it already, about communication, like and about how your patient perceives it to be. Now, there's a difference between secretly using topical on them and then not knowing what happened, and actually pointing out to the patient that I'm going to make it a painless experience, I'll make it very comfortable, I'm going to use a numbing gel, this will make you feel, your gum feel numb already, even before I give you the anesthetic, and therefore we're aiming for a fantastic appointment for you. Can you see the difference? Versus not even making a big deal of it. That's what I mean. Dentistry is all about communication, and it's a show. It's theatrics.
It all ties in.
Okay, this is just a personal question because I was so curious about the 18 months you spent in Singapore as a dentist. So, I know that it's not common for dentists to be going abroad for work, which is the one complaint I have with this profession. I love dentistry. It's just so sad that, unlike my other friends, I don't get to travel around the world, practice in different countries because my patients are going to be in one place. I would like to stay with my patients over the course of years. So, how did you get the opportunity to go to Singapore? Was that like a big change in your career, or how did that go about?
Yeah, it was a change. It was a bit of a risk at the time as well, in terms of do I continue my career progression in the UK where I already have a network or, people and stuff, or do I do this massive change? And me and my wife at the time were like, if we don't do it now, when will we do it? We just finished our dental core training at hospital. The next step was get a mortgage, enter the rat race, find practice jobs or whatever. And we thought, now is our golden opportunity to do something really crazy. And so we went to Singapore. We sought out one of our friends who was already there practicing. We found out the entry requirements, etc. And we just got in at the phase in Singapore where they were okay at accepting foreign grads. Now it's become a lot more difficult with the SDC and stuff. Anything ending in DC is bad news, basically. It worked out well, and I had a great time. And I had a fantastic experience traveling the world while I was there, because as you know, J1, from Singapore you can get to Malaysia, Indonesia, India, Australia so much more easier. And so we made a big deal to travel around. Went to Bangkok for Sim's birthday, and we did all these Bali. We did a whole load of traveling, but also experienced dentistry in a new country, which is great.
I'm from Singapore, yet I'm so jealous of your dental experience there in Singapore. Sounds amazing. I would love
Can
to
I
get that
ask you
opportunity
both?
too. Go ahead.
Sorry, can I ask you both, how is dentistry in Singapore different to here?
I think
J1, you go first. What is your perception
Okay,
in terms of like?
as a dental student,
Yeah.
I mean, all I got to see was as a high school student, not even studying dentistry, or as a dental student, just going into clinics and seeing how it's like. I think because I was so unsure about dentistry before I was applying, I tried to get the most experience as possible. I went into something that's NHS equivalent, so like community based, into private, which is really high end. It was pretty much only catered for expats. People were walking in with Gucci shoes, nothing less, and with Burberry bags. So I really got to see the whole spectrum, I think. So I can't really pinpoint down to say Singapore dentistry is like this. I think from what I saw here, it's quite similar, but the number of cases, the variety you get is going to be quite limited. London, it's a diverse group. You have all kinds of different teeth. And no offense, but the UK is quite well known for their bad teeth. So for clinical experience, I think
I'm
this is the
sure it's a
best place.
myth.
But in Singapore, you won't get the variety, but still there is variances. I think the population generally suffers a lot more with diabetes and caries compared to the UK, I think. So maybe those are some cases I could see more prevalently there. Yeah, I don't know. What's your point of view on this, Dr. Jazz?
In the UK, dentists sometimes have bad morale about the NHS this and the NHS that. In the US, the dentists complain about my insurance only pays out this much, and I have a high volumes, and you have that dentist going between four operatories and treating four different patients at the same time and stuff. And in Singapore, you have the same thing. The some of the surgeries, some of the clinics I worked in Bukit Batok in the West and stuff. I was seeing uncles and aunties and stuff, and I was doing GICs and stuff, basic stuff, dentures, extractions, and then in the posher clinic, I was doing fluoride varnish and composites because they didn't have that much disease. So the main thing is that people are people, teeth are teeth, and yes, the systems, how you get remunerated may vary, but there's still disease everywhere. The type of disease you see just varies big time in terms of your demographics. In fact, I remember my wife was working in a clinic 1.1 kilometer from me on the same corporate chain at the time. And I was doing so many dentures, and she hadn't done a denture the whole year. And so it was just amazing in terms of the difference in that 1 kilometer of demographic made in Singapore. It was hilarious.
That is amazing. 1 kilometer made that big of a difference.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Insane,
yeah.
insane. How about in the sense of dentistry itself? Do you think the dentistry that the Singaporean dentists practice is different from what you were educated or what you normally see in the UK?
It's a difficult one to say because when dentists qualify, they pick up bad habits. We all do. We pick up bad habits, and then we don't have a tutor anymore to guide us. We're out in the real world. So what I saw from my predecessors who worked in that Singapore clinic or the dentist next door was a reflection of that dentist, not necessarily a reflection of the education they received. That's like saying, what kind of education did those from King's get? Now, if I look at someone who's maybe 5 years qualified now and doing what they're doing, that's more of a projection of themselves, yeah, with a bit of background training and stuff, but what you end up doing and how you end up practicing, it may be very different to what you were taught. So to put a long story short, I guess I was surprised to join a clinic whereby I had to request for them to order rubber dam. And I was doing rubber dam dentistry and they had to bring it in for me. I was surprised that dentists were doing a lot of large GICs when I was saying, well, why aren't we doing large composites and why aren't we doing crowns kind of things? But that doesn't mean that the Singaporean dentists weren't taught very well, because I went to other clinics and everything was done very high standard, very good. So it varies individual to individual, and you just have to be as professional as you can, because ultimately professionalism is when no one's watching you, you're doing the right thing. And sometimes doing the right thing can be difficult, because sometimes doing the right thing involves a difficult conversation. And what I mean by that is, in a clinic where the dentist wouldn't take any bite wings because it was just the cultural norm there not to take bite wings, and I came in and I was like, okay, we need to take bite wings, and now suddenly the patient was paying for their checkup and paying 70% of the checkup fee for bite wings, and for them was like, what the hell? Like, $99 for a checkup and $70 for bite wings. Before it was always $99 for a checkup. Like, it was big friction, but I know that I need bite wings. I can't diagnose and get a complete examination without bite wings. So because it involved that difficult conversation, maybe the dentist was like, you know what, we'll just do a checkup and we'll only take PAs when there's pain or whatever, right? So sometimes doing the right thing involves a difficult conversation, but I did a lot more bite wings, I did a lot more rubber dam dentistry, because I truly believed that was the right thing to do, and patients can sniff that. Patients can sense that, okay, this is someone who definitely has my best interest in their heart, and they've explained it to me in a good way, and therefore they trusted me, and I was able to work to a standard that I was happy with.
I love how much you care. Like,
Yes.
you can tell.
I
Like,
can tell.
when some dentists really care.
Passionate, yes. And that is your own personal branding. I listened to this whole episode on personal branding, and I'm so sad that we didn't get to discuss about it. But you did talk about like social media and how that plays a big role in dentistry nowadays compared to just 10 or 20 years ago. So if you have any thoughts about that, feel free to share how that kind of change has been brought about to your field and your career.
I think there's so much exposure we can get. So I'm going to just, I guess, wrap that one up by saying, listen to everyone, give everyone your time, and expose yourself to different ways of thinking, but also question everything at the same time. So it's okay to look at something like, wow, that's really interesting, but you also need to have that critical thinking. Is that, okay, is this evidence-based? Should I ask someone more experienced about what they think about this? Before I start looking at something on Instagram and start doing it on my patient, you really need to go through a journey. You need to go through a critical thinking journey and look at other results and look, why is this dentist being so successful? Is it because they're using certain protocols and certain materials which you don't have access to, and therefore if you suddenly start implementing it, you will not get the same results that they do? And so that's where you need to just pull out that wallet, learn more, go do a master's program, whatever it needs to be, and you need to, unfortunately, make up for a lack of knowledge and training in other ways. And you know what? Here's what I think. The most successful dentists that I see are the ones who invested most in themselves. The best investment you can make is in yourself, whether that's your personal development, your physical development, in terms of fitness, exercise, that kind of stuff. You're going to start eating better. You're going to start paying more for your food, whatever it could be. But as long as you invest in yourself, that's the best investment you can make. And then those dentists who go out and very soon they start doing the courses and they become kind of like course junkies, they're the ones who have a better portfolio. They land the better job. They are able to do the better care. They take the better photos, and then therefore their trajectory in their career is much higher versus, you know what, I don't want to do this course yet. I'm not ready yet. I'm not going to do it. And then you do the basic dentistry, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with doing basic dentistry. But if you're doing basic dentistry with a desire or a wish to do something more complex, and you think that it's going to magically have those skills, then without investing time, hard work, blood and sweat in terms of, I've done so many exams after qualifying other degrees and whatnot, to be able to practice with confidence. Because ultimately, when you come to in private practice and you're charging a patient hard-earned money, you need to have conviction in yourself that, you know what, I'm worth it. And the only way you're going to be having that feeling, unless you're a psychopath, is by actually really feeling as though that you're following the protocols the best way, and then you're taught by someone who's also been very successful, and you're implementing evidence-based techniques. The better photos, and therefore their trajectory in their career is much higher versus, you know what, I don't want to do this course yet. I'm not ready yet. I'm not going to do it. And then you do the basic dentistry, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with doing basic dentistry. But if you're doing basic dentistry with a desire or a wish to do something more complex, and you think that it's going to magically have those skills, then without investing time, hard work, blood and sweat in terms of, I've done so many exams after qualifying other degrees and whatnot, to be able to practice with confidence. Because ultimately, when you come to in private practice and you're charging a patient hard-earned money, you need to have conviction in yourself that, you know what, I'm worth it. And the only way you're going to be having that feeling, unless you're a psychopath, is by actually really feeling as though that you're following the protocols the best way, and then you're taught by someone who's also been very successful, and you're implementing evidence-based techniques.
Yeah, thank you so much. Also, I was just going to say, guys, if you want to hear more from Dr. Jazz, do follow his Instagram and his Spotify. You can hear more from him. Obtrusive Dental. Yes.
Thank you for the plug.
We'll have a little shout out with our Fiverr voiceover as well.
I feel like I need to send you a payment for that Fiverr voiceover.
Okay, I think we're running out of time, so I'll just ask you the last question that we have. What is a change that you wish to bring? It doesn't really have to be related to dentistry. It could be, but it could also be something personal or family, anything.
A change. It's a very broad question. A change to the world, a change to world peace, a change to politics. What kind of change we're talking about?
Anything. It's up to your interpretation. But because you're so
okay, the change. Yeah, fine. The change I wish to bring is to make dentists feel more fulfilled from their work. And the best example I can give you is the days when I work and for some reason I don't get to take a photo of what I'm doing. So I don't take those days where I don't take a photo is the days that I look back and say, I didn't enjoy today. But the days where I immerse myself in what I'm doing and I take a photo of every little step and I really get into it and I enter this state of flow. They call it a state of flow where suddenly 2 hours is gone. It's like, whoa, I can't believe 2 hours is gone because you're so engrossed. You're not looking at the time thinking, oh my God, when is it lunchtime? That's the opposite of flow. So how do we get dentists in flow? And it's about being able to enjoy your work. And you can only enjoy your work if you're in the right environment. And then to get yourself in the right environment, you need to gain fulfillment from your career. And I guess the change I wish to bring to the world is inspiring everyone to seek better, to do better so that they can enjoy more of their work and live this work in their career that they wanted to. That's why you came to dental school. But be proud of it. Don't listen to the fake news or the suicidal profession and it's really stressful, you'll get sued, etc. That's a lot of scaremongering. You can totally have a fulfilling enjoyment and a career that you can gain enjoyment from. It just takes a lot of hard work and finding the right culture. But once you find that right environment and right culture, you can thrive.
Thank you. I think you're already helping with that change.
Good.
To be honest.
I hope so.
This topic is really inspirational. And also your podcast, I'm sure, is helping many of us in King's College and just all over the UK. Super inspirational. Keep up the work. Thank you so much.
And internationally.
Hey, thank you very much, ladies. Really appreciate you having on. And I hope to check out King's Crown when it's out.